Hey guys, what's going on? Zimzilla, and today I'll be doing a commentary on Ghidorah Realm's second newest video, Fanbase Opinions on Godzilla, King of Monsters, and Kong Skull Island. Although the video is titled Fanbase Opinions, he tries to impose his own biases as a more legitimate alternative theory to those he detracts. Now, I think a lot of you know I've already done a video on Ghidorah's Realms, however he had gone by a different username at the time, so this will be the first time I will be commentating on him as Ghidorah's Realm, so I'll be calling him as Ghidorah's Realm from now on. And this is also coming off of the commentary in which he slandered someone and was spreading misinformation. However, he did make a video, which he deleted afterwards, calling me a kid, only seeking out drama, then blocking me on 2 forms of media, and then also commenting on my video, which I will quote. "Hey, I deleted that video, and I have to thank you for that. You made me realize that I should not contribute to the hate. I will leave that up to you guys. Thanks for criticizing me, I do appreciate that!" Exclamation point. And yes, I have learned that posting videos about guys and gals who hate the movie, well, it just contributes to the hate, so I took it down. Moving on from it! Exclamation point. But it's very sad that my points were completely overlooked, as you slandered someone and nitpicked him, despite hating those who nitpicked 1998, disabling comments, therefore labeling anyone who disparages from you as a 98 hater, yet you are also cutting off dialogue between those who want to engage in a more critical and intellectual discussion about why they don't like Godzilla 1998, and last but not least, blaming other people for your unpleasant emotions after continuing to engage with those people and not engaging with those who are more apt for critical discussion, but chose for those who just want to blindly hate something. Which is kind of counterintuitive, as you don't want to contribute to more hate, but you continue to do that, and as such you feel negative emotions, but you feel it is their fault for hating the film, despite you, of your own volition, continuing to engage with them. And also trying to say I'm not welcome on your channel because I called you out and called me a kid despite I'm a grown man, but whatever. But that's less important. If you want to look at that commentary as well as those comments, links in the description. Now on to the video. Now, Ghidorah's Realm was so kind as to have all his questions here, so I will be using those as the still images behind my commentary. So his first question that he calls out, which I find it funny that he refuses to actually link any of these YouTubers that he calls out. Is it because maybe he doesn't want their fans backlash? I mean, maybe. I should also mention that because of this, there is really no empirical evidence that any of these claims were mentioned. And because of that, for all we know, and for all I know, or any audience member knows, these are just straw mans of opinions he wants to tear down to make himself and his opinions look better. But his first question is, when it comes, one question that comes to mind is, Ghidorah is not going to survive in Godzilla King of the Monsters. Now, points for this is that, well, both Mutos died, Ramarak's dead, Kong is coming after Ghidorah, so there might be some way to hype up Godzilla vs. King Kong, since that's what everyone's kind of looking for. As newer fans, they have probably watched some of the older films, but they do not know about King Ghidorah and are probably getting into the series, and everyone knows about Kong now, and everyone remembers, oh yeah, King Kong, that's like a really old movie, he's come back, oh, they're gonna fight, oh wait, they fought before, oh man, even though they probably learn about Ghidorah along the way, everyone's more excited for Godzilla vs. King Kong, so probably in terms of marketing, they might kill Ghidorah off to hype up Kong. As well as also, if this film and Ghidorah dies in a similar way to the 1991 film, it could lead into a MonsterVerse Mecha King Ghidorah possibly. I mean, Ghidorah doesn't have to be completely destroyed. Ghidorah could still be dead in some way, and they just use his body, and bada bing, bada boom, we get Mecha King Ghidorah. Points against is that Ghidorah is part of the Big Five, and well, there's 2 other members of the Big Five, aside from Godzilla in this film, Mothra and Rodan, so he might not kill any of them, for all we know, and he might just fight them and defeat them, as well as he's Godzilla's nemesis. We don't want Godzilla's nemesis to be killed off so easily. However, he does, this is an opinion, and it would be a waste to kill him off and not use Mecha King Ghidorah. So for those who also agree that, yeah, I'd like to see a MonsterVerse Mecha King Ghidorah, that would be cool to me. So, I mean, that is a point for and against. And also, for some people who like to point this out, Godzilla needed help twice in the Showa era. even though technically there, if you actually examine certain parts, which I'll go into later on, Godzilla didn't need help in one of those instances. However, there he states no empirical evidence, but he does state that in an article, Godzilla will fight one-on-one with each kaiju. So Rodan, Mothra, King Ghidorah, as he said in that order. I have looked at the article; it's stated in that order. I do not know if it's going to be in that order more specifically, but time will only tell in that case. My first big issue is that he states that 2014 will be too tired and will lose, and he also believes that more likely Mothra and Rodan will be killed. And I believe that's not going to be the case. I don't get why they would bring in two of the big five, who were two kaiju that had movies after Godzilla raids again, who are really big in the fan base, and, like I've said, part of the big five, along with Mechagodzilla, King Ghidorah, and Godzilla. Mothra and Rodan are excessively important to the franchise, and having them killed off so quickly in one movie and not letting them stay longer makes no sense from a marketing standpoint, as we saw them for one movie. Newer fans are going to be like, oh, okay, they're old monsters. Who really cares? The MonsterVerse team really wants people to care about these characters, and as such, I don't believe Mothra and Rodan will be killed, as from a marketing standpoint, it makes no sense. He also believes that 2014 is too quote-unquote OP, because from a comic, which I believe he's most likely referring to Godzilla Awakening, he got hit by a meteorite in the face and survived. And however, this is actually false, as he wasn't hit directly by the meteorite. The meteorite which he's referring to is the Permian mass extinction event, which, from what we can assume, the timeline which Godzilla's species evolved was from a period before the Permian era. As such, the Permian extinction wiped out lots of life. However, kaiju were able to go beneath places of the earth to seek radiation. And in Godzilla's case, he went down to the depths of the ocean near the thermal vents, which he was able to take the radiation there, or go completely underground. In those cases, that's how Godzilla was able to survive. However, this is an incredibly durable Godzilla, as he was able to survive multiple mass extinctions. However, he survived them by being in the ocean, and lots of species survived by being in the oceans. And as Godzilla had no predators or anything of that sort in those areas, and had all of this radiation to himself, he did not have to worry about it. And to you directly, you are aware that the 2000 Giragoji has a black hole feat, right? So, I mean, in terms of durability, 2014 is not the most durable Godzilla. That would go to the Giragoji. So, after debunking that, he also states that 2014 is pretty much... Here's the thing. Let's get this out of the way. 2014 had to fight two monsters. Ghidorah is one monster. He has three heads. However, the heads can attack from different angles, but Godzilla's probably going to know where those heads are coming from based on if he's charging at Ghidorah directly. But we should also make mention that the last time Godzilla 2014 ever fought a kaiju was the Shinomura, and that was in 1953. And he was nuked in 1954, and he was not active until 2014. That was 61 years since his last time he fought a kaiju, and it was 60 years since he was really active and humans were directly involved with actions concerning him. However, we do see that the military was monitoring Godzilla during this time. However, I chalk this up due to more the Mutos becoming more active, and as such, Godzilla started to resurface again. As we do notice that when the subs are trying to continue to chase Godzilla as he descended into the ocean before he came up near the Golden Gate Bridge, they were not able to catch Godzilla, so most likely that's the reason why there's so many ships in the Pacific, is because they're trying to locate Godzilla whenever and wherever he might be. And as we do not know how many governments are involved with this, we assume it's only the U.S. military. A lot of U.S. military ordnance as well as equipment is out in the Pacific, so that's probably their main reason why they're out there in this universe. And he also states that the two Mutos were knocking Godzilla around, and he then equates that where Ghidorah will just manhandle 2014. Yes, the Mutos aren't top tier, so they're not as big a threat. However, the Muto species as a whole is designed to combat Godzilla, as shown with their EMP being able to directly influence Godzilla's atomic breath and make it weaker. However, we should also make mention of the fact that the Muto species is a parasitoid or parasite species and displays tarantula hawk-like behavior towards Godzilla species, as shown with two Muto eggs being laid inside a old Godzilla specimen, as I will refer to this Godzilla as the holotype specimen in a later part of the video. And because of this, I do not believe that Ghidorah is going to have as easy time against this Godzilla, depending on how they interpret King Ghidorah. But a standard Ghidorah against this Godzilla, it's not going to be Ghidorah just completely destroying this Godzilla, like how the Mutos were having a pretty good time fighting him because that species is designed to combat Godzilla. He also states that Godzilla was swimming from Hawaii to Cali, and as such, that was the reason why he was so tired, except the male Muto flew further in 2 instances, Japan to Hawaii and Hawaii to Cali, as well as the female went across a state all the way to San Francisco, like from Nevada to San Francisco, went all the way across that state and came and fought Godzilla. And she had eggs too, so she was probably drained as it is. And you're saying that 2014 pretty much, by that logic, you're stating that 2014 has less stamina than the male Muto, which I doubt entirely. I challenge you on that claim completely. That makes no sense. And then he compares Rodan and Mothra to the Muto, saying they're not as big a threat. By what metric are you even calculating this? I mean, we have not even seen what Mothra and Rodan can do. We can assume based on older feats by these characters. However, we don't know about Rodan's incarnation. Is he going to be like the typical show Rodan? Or is he going to be the Heisei Fire Rodan? Or the Final Wars Rodan? We don't know anything, and the same goes for Mothra, who has even more forms with the rebirth of Mothras, as well as all the Mothras that appear in the Godzilla films. We don't know any of Mothra's abilities or her size at all, so trying to compare Mutos to the unmade Rodan and Mothras makes no sense, because, I mean, there's too many variables. And then he also states that this is his entire opinion, that Ghidorah is the most powerful kaiju Godzilla has ever fought, except Destroya fought a more amped Godzilla. SpaceGodzilla in the manga adaptation of the story is confirmed to be above planet-busting level. Mechagodzilla 1 made Godzilla bleed while Ghidorah wasn't able to. Mechagodzilla 2 was able to paralyze Godzilla, not kill him, I'll get into that. And Mogera was able to beat Mechagodzilla 2 and the manga version of the story. However, Mogera was also able to stand up a brief while against SpaceGodzilla. So, I mean, Heisei Ghidorah does not stack up to a lot of the later monsters, and Showa Ghidorah does not really stand up to Showa Mechagodzilla, so I don't know what you're talking about. As well as he also states Godzilla needed help to defeat Ghidorah, and let's go over this. In 1964, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, Godzilla, Mothra, and Rodan all fought against Ghidorah. This is the first time Godzilla's fought Ghidorah, so yes, Ghidorah, Mothra, and Rodan, he needed help to beat Ghidorah the first time. The second time he encounters Ghidorah is on Planet X, and it's an invasion of the Astro Monster, or Godzilla vs. Monster Zero. And aside from Rodan throwing a boulder on Ghidorah, Godzilla was handling that fight pretty steadily and was able to jump on Ghidorah, and he forced Ghidorah to retreat as well. And was having a pretty good while fighting against Ghidorah the second time around, with Rodan doing very minimal. And aside from Rodan grabbing Godzilla and him kind of ramming him into Ghidorah and all three of them falling into the ocean, Ghidorah escaped once again, and Rodan and Godzilla both survived that fight. So, I don't know, you can't even say, oh, well, even though in the English dub, they state that, did he kill Rodan and Godzilla? And another guy says, oh, of course they can't, they're too tough. Which, we've seen Rodan get out of water, Rodan's not going to drown, and Godzilla lives in water, so Godzilla definitely survived as well. And we also know that this is the same Godzilla all the way till 75, so Ghidorah, even in Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, the one time they actually had a true 1v1, Godzilla still beat Ghidorah. And however, he states, oh yeah, well, in Destroy All Monsters, Godzilla needed help. Yeah, Ghidorah got curb stomped in Destroy All Monsters. I mean, if you thought Ghidorah had any chance of killing any of those monsters, you're sorely mistaken, and you're really bad at power scaling. And I should also mention that in GMK Godzilla whipped Giddy. He whipped Giddy hard until Mothra amped him and turned him into quote-unquote King Ghidorah. And even after that, Godzilla absorbed Ghidorah's gravity beams, turned it into an even stronger atomic breath, and blew him apart. Yes, Giddy got blasted apart. So yes, King Giddy ain't really that strong. In certain cases, he's subject to a lot of power scaling. And, oh man, here comes the straw manning of, oh, well, I think Godzilla's the strongest character ever, and stuff like that, where it's like, oh, yeah, I see all these people say, oh, anytime they fight anything in Godzilla, oh, Godzilla's gonna win. And this is very sad, because I hate it when people do this, because You're conflating people who try to use a composite power scale, people who do a variation power scale, and then people who just use all of Godzilla's feats. They're not power scaling, they're not doing anything, they're just saying Godzilla with all the abilities he's ever shown in all media, that Godzilla will win. And in many cases, Godzilla would, because if you power scale it properly, Godzilla is quite strong in a composite form. However, single variations are strong as well, as I have done various times in 2 instances, Flowey and Ultraman. However, I will be working on a power scale for the Showa and Heisei series, so I'll be doing power scaling in way more detail. But let's move on to the next point. Alright, his next question is, he says that Mothra and Rodan are actually going to be thrown in the mix and help Godzilla fight and defeat King Ghidorah. And he thinks that's not going to happen because he's like, oh, it's going to be too much like a remake. I don't want it to be like that. I want Godzilla to kill those two so then he will be quote-unquote tired, because that's my headcanon. The headcanon Zenshu is strong with me. And he'll lose to King Ghidorah and then he'll fight King Kong and we don't know. Maybe Kong will win. I don't know. I've got a headcanon. But why wouldn't Mothra and Rodan not be killed? Because, I mean, if anything, the more likely explanation is that they want to keep those two monsters around. If anything, Godzilla's going to defeat both creatures to display dominance, go on to fight King Ghidorah. Most likely, in my opinion, he's not going to beat King Ghidorah by himself, although he might have a good time against King Ghidorah. And I think, if anything, Mothra and Rodan will just come in and completely overpower King Ghidorah, causing Ghidorah to retreat, or maybe be killed. However, I think a retreat from Ghidorah is more likely. And because of that, I think, if anything, it keeps, marketing-wise, keeps Mothra, Rodan, and King Ghidorah around. Obviously, it keeps Godzilla around, and it keeps Godzilla as the king of the monsters in the eyes of the fans and the general public, as they still need to market Godzilla as this big, ultra-powerful monster, even though statistically and analytically it makes sense for him to be that strong within the context of his own story. But for those who detract, yes, Godzilla is supposed to be that strong, and I think he'll be very close to Ghidorah, but similar to the first fight, he'll need help to understand Ghidorah, and the next time they fight, Godzilla's going to completely beat King Ghidorah, similarly to the 1991 film. I think that's just a fact. However, I don't get this. He goes into a little Kong wank here. He wanks off King Kong a little bit in a part about Mothra and Rodan, and I'll just clump this together within the next part right here. So this is gonna be fun. Now this question's funny. He's like, it's surprising, especially coming from a hardcore Godzilla fans, yet they take another poke at King Kong at being the weaker kaiju of the two, which I find funny because I think any video he's talked about Godzilla vs. King Kong, he loves to wank King Kong with the headcanon Zenshu. The headcanon Zenshu is so strong with his wank, and his first wank line is, "Oh, Kong will resist the atomic breath because of the exposure to the napalm." You're trying to tell me that he is no longer going to be affected by radiation because he absorbed napalm, except Godzilla's atomic breath is radioactive superheated plasma, so it's still gonna burn. It doesn't mean he's gonna be resistant to super hot stuff. It just means radiation doesn't hurt him in terms of a sickness sort of way. But whenever I look at King Kong, this is pretty much what I feel it is. In this case, in the 2014 Kong versus the 2014 Godzilla, even though Kong came out later, but whatever, 2014 monsters all around, it's like a Carnifex, which is a prehistoric crocodile ancestor, being the size of an allosaur, with the bombardier beetle's spray adaptation, having equivalent to that in its mouth, fighting a Gigantopithecus, which is a species of large ape-like creature, all prehistoric animals. But yes, a Carnifex, so a crocodile ancestor that walked on its hind legs, had usable arms the size of an allosaur, so you can look up how big an allosaur is, and have it with a bombardier beetles-esque spray. So everyone knows what the bombardier beetle is. Got that little cannon thing in its butt. You can spray out that hot spray and have it just fight a giant gorilla. A very big gorilla, but still probably smaller than an allosaur. So that's what I confer this fight to be. And he does mention, oh well, Kong won the fight in 62. Godzilla had not moved anywhere for 7 years, and not to mention he was not accustomed to electrical discharges, and let's be honest with everyone here. All scaling, no headcanon, 75 Godzilla, so Godzilla at the end of Terra Mechagodzilla fighting 62 Kong, who had been active for a long time, had not been stopped or not moving or anything at all. Kong at that point, 75 Godzilla stomps. There's no question about it. Godzilla had become accustomed to electricity. He'd pretty much been tanking lightning bolts, which is how Kong got his power, so Godzilla's not going to be affected anymore by electricity. However, he also believes in a headcanon that Kong Godzilla will fight another kaiju. A lot of people don't want this to happen. I don't care either way. I would rather see a Dark Knight Returns, more faithful Dark Knight Returns, Godzilla vs. King Kong, Batman vs. Superman fight. I don't want it to end up like Dawn of Justice, where another kaiju comes in, or even two kaijus come in and another ally and another enemy. Like, if Ghidorah has to come in, let Godzilla and King Kong fight it out. Don't introduce another monster. If you have to have one win and then they both team up afterwards, similarly to Dawn of Justice, but I'd rather just see these two fight. But let's compare the two. With King Kong and Godzilla as of current, I already did my current effects little metaphor there, but the fact is that he continues to say that Godzilla is a mutated dinosaur. No, 2014 is a natural species. He is natural. He is not a mutated dinosaur. His species is as large as that is normally. Godzilla, in this case, if we were to talk about him on a scientific basis, is the holotype of his species. He's a living specimen, as well as the first specimen they ever saw. Pretty much, his species is like if a dinosaur, I know he's not a dinosaur, but a dinosaur with crocodile-like mannerisms and defenses, because he has all that armor, as well as a flamethrower adaptation, fighting a really large gorilla. Also, King Kong is a mutant of his species. That should be apparent if you read the comic book, The Birth of Kong Skull Island. Kong's parents are as large as he is, as shown in many sequences of them fighting adult skull crawlers on Skull Island. His parents are going to be a lot smaller than him when he gets to his quote-unquote full size. He's growing at a tremendous rate, much, much bigger than any other member of his species. He's not the holotype. He could probably be considered the holotype of his species because he is the only living specimen. However, if anyone went to Skull Island, got some of their bones, they could determine a true holotype, as Kong is going to be much larger. As indeed, Ramorak is a full-size skull crawler, and if to compare Ramorak to any of the other skull crawlers depicted in the novels as full-grown, Ramorak and Kong are similar to Kong's parents in any other skull crawlers shown within the comic book. Another thing he states is that Kong's is possibly going to be stronger than Godzilla. What evidence do you have to support this? Ramorak is 100 tons and 28.5 meters tall and 59 meters long. The female Muto is 91.49 meters tall, and the male is 60.96 meters tall. Neither Mutos have weights. However, based on their size alone, they would have to be more than 20,000 tons, which is the weight of a Showa Godzilla. And you may say, oh well, the male probably weighs less because of his his ability to fly. Well, Rodan's around 15,000 tons, so he's still going to weigh more than a Skullcrawler, and Godzilla both threw the Muto around and was pushing against the female Muto, and when he grabbed her, he was able to lift her up off the ground and would have probably destroyed her if the male Muto had not grabbed him by the back and pulled him away. Not to mention the fact that, yes, the male is incredibly strong, so the Mutos, like I've said, they're not top-tier kaiju, but they still are much tougher than Ramorak is. Ramorak is kind of fodder, I'm sorry. And I find it funny how you find it funny that you like to nitpick, you get to get fans angry, like, oh yeah, Kong's gonna beat Godzilla, haha, it's so funny because I'm making you guys angry, yet you get all butthurt over people nitpicking 98. Hypocrisy at its finest, folks. And then he brings in the Beast reference. Yes, the 98 fan Beast reference. Godzilla exists because of the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. Yes, by your own train of logic, then, the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms was spawned from Unknown Island, because Unknown Island came before that, as well as a whole bunch of other mutated animal or dinosaur-like movies came out before the Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. So by your logic, the Harryhausen guys, both Rays, were inspired by those movies, which they probably weren't. They just wanted to make a monster movie. They weren't like, oh yeah, this is the reason why I'm going to make everything super similar to those older movies. No, Godzilla was inspired by Kong. Yes, that is true. And also, it's really funny because you say, oh yeah, you Godzilla fans wouldn't exist because of King Kong, so don't make fun of King Kong. Well, If 54 didn't happen, you wouldn't have 98. So, don't try to be mean to those people either. Don't have a soapbox in a glass house. And I should point out that he does mention that this is a new group of fans. However, he does have a little narrative of his own here. But this is the second largest group of Godzilla fans we've seen in some time. The last big batch was around 1999, as that was when the Millennium series started. And of course, we know that Godzilla Final Wars was the ending of the Millennium series. However, those group of fans kept on inspiring people, and it just kept on going because of the IMAX, Godzilla movie being proposed, the games, and then of course 2012 was when we first heard about a new American Godzilla, and then that spawned 2014, which we got all these new fans. And it's really funny because you keep saying, oh yeah, I find it nuts that people could think that Godzilla is so uberly powerful. Well, why don't you debate someone who actually analyzes the series and takes stuff a little bit more seriously than some random Facebook, YouTube comments? I mean, there's a lot of Godzilla YouTubers you can probably debate. I mean, I'm not saying you'd probably know more about it than them because you have a lot of headcanon Zenshu in you. And here's where his hardcore label falls apart, because like he says, oh, these people don't like Shin Godzilla, and then he calls them 2014 fans, but later we'll backtrack and still call them hardcore Godzilla fans. If they don't like Shin Godzilla, they're not hardcore Godzilla fans, they are people who like 2014, most likely new 2014 fans, or new quote-unquote Godzilla fans. They're not hardcore Godzilla fans, because I know how much you like to label everyone as either a hater of 98, a hardcore Godzilla fan, a Godzilla elitist, any kind of disparaging term that you like to use. But you are wrong. So very, very wrong. Because that makes no sense. They are not hardcore Godzilla fans. They are probably 2014 fans. Your narrative falls apart right there. And then he also says, oh yeah, King Kong's going to be so quick, so cunning. What proof do you have? Are you kind of compositing old Showa King Kongs and saying, oh yeah, it's going to be similar to that. Even though you don't want Godzilla to fight King Ghidorah alongside Mothra and Rodan because it'd be too much like a remake, but you composite those to be similar to a remake of the original film. Once again, hypocrisy at its finest. Next question. Oh boy. Oh my. Oh my. Oh my. This is where it gets good. He says a comment where King Kong is fighting the Skull Crawlers. He has a tough time trying to defeat them. Then this fan goes on to say that Godzilla will defeat anything on Skull Island with ease. Arrogance at its best. I'm sorry, your headcanon Zenshu is so firmly fixed on your face, it hurts. I'm not sure how you can even see with the headcanon Zenshu on you so hard. But let's get into it. Yes, let's power scale this. Let's compare all the creatures that were in the film. I'm not counting any of the things from the comics that aren't in the films because most of those are very small and can be hurt significantly by human weaponry. So, let's get into it. Skeer Buffalo. Fodder. Complete fodder. Young skull crawlers can kill these things. They're fodder. Can be trapped under debris. Fodder. Stop it. Mother Longlegs got killed by humans, and its legs could be cut by conventional blades. Fodder. Meyer Squid has its scalding ink. It's up to furnace level temperatures. Not that hot. Fodder. Fodder, fodder, fodder. Kong beat that thing with ease. That's fodder, and that's a juvenile Kong, so fodder. The Spore Mantis got hurt by M16 shots and moved away. If it was really willing to, it could have attacked and kept on that guy, but no. Fodder. And Ramarak. Ramarak is a fully mature skullcrawler. Even though he's a big skullcrawler, and even though his species could kill any member of Kong's species, as shown with his entire species being wiped out, he is the last of his kind on that island. Ramarak, compared to Showa Kaiju, compared to Godzilla series Kaiju, he is fodder. He is pure fodder. I mean, the fact is that Kong was just able to go down there, grab his guts, and pull them out. Literally. Creatures with other big tongues, like Barugan from Gamera, his tongue couldn't be affected like that. Even Zetus. Zetus, it was a harder time to pull out Zetus's tongue, and he had a barbed tongue. Gamera had to be much bigger to pull that thing off, because if by that logic, Toto could have been able to pull off Zetus' tongue the first time he did it. And he shot fire into Zetus' mouth, and Zetus didn't lose his tongue. And his guts. So yeah, Ramarak is still fodder. Ramarak is pretty small, so I don't know why you're saying that's arrogance at its finest. Oh my gosh, the headcanon Zenshu. And then he says, oh, well, Godzilla's so powerful, why can't Kong be so powerful? Because character-wise and lore-wise, statistically, it makes no sense. And once again, he keeps on saying, oh, well, back in 62, Kong beat Godzilla in a fight. And I will say this once again, 75 is the same Godzilla from 62. He didn't kill Godzilla. 75 stomps show a Kong, so moving on. And sorry, Ghidorah, my man, stop. He's not a dinosaur. It's a primitive reptile species. Get your facts right if you're going to try to stand on this high horse here. And no, Kong is not growing to his normal size. He is growing above and beyond. Once again, my source being the comics. They are fighting fully mature skull crawlers. His parents are much older as they've already matured and had children. They are at the apex of their size. And Kong's parents are still around the same size as Ramorak. Kong is going to be far bigger than any of his parents. Stop it. And then he tries to say, oh, Kong's going to be so much smarter than Godzilla. He's a thinking animal. Godzilla has a brain about this size. He is sheer brute force. I mean, I love how you take dub lines and then think they're really serious, but whatever. But here's the thing. What makes him so much smarter, really? Is it because he shows sympathy towards humans that he's had direct contact with for so long in his life, as such he's been able to be benevolent towards these people who show no harm to him, as opposed to Godzilla, which is an ancient reptilian species which has never seen humans for so long, and only appeared to fight other creatures because it was more instinctual of him to do. And he knew what his bigger threats were. And bigger threats is really interesting because that leads into another question he'll talk about later. As well as also he says, oh, well, Kong used conventional weaponry, like the chain, and he ripped off a tree. Godzilla was fighting in a city. He used his tail to smash the Mito against a building. And I think, if anything, Godzilla's never going to try that again, because when he did that, that building crashed on top of him. So he now probably knows those buildings are not good because they will probably fall on top of him, because they're not sturdy. And then he goes into, oh, Godzilla's so OP. I'm sorry that these people can power scale and understand things better than you. It's not because, oh, he's OP. It's just you can't power scale or analyze anything to the degree that these people can. And another point. I'd rather not have this on here because of the foul language, and I don't want to be demonetized. YouTube, I've already had to file so many things. Please don't demonetize this video. But. Godzilla does not care about King Kong and will fight Ghidorah. This is going on the assumption that Ghidorah will appear in Godzilla vs. King Kong and will be the greater threat. And yes, most likely this is true. Godzilla doesn't really care about King Kong. As my evidence to support this would be the painting. Either these two creatures have fought each other, or this species has fought this species before, or this is a prophecy. Either way, they're destined to fight each other. Although, due to marketing, King Kong is going to fight Godzilla as well, but in the lore of this story, Godzilla is more focused on King Ghidorah, and if King Ghidorah appears in Godzilla vs. King Kong, Godzilla will care far more about Ghidorah, who is a flying dragon with 3 heads and laser beams, gravity beams, that can destroy cities and destroy the planet. Godzilla is more concerned with protecting his territory, which is pretty much the entire planet, while King Kong is content to live on his island. If King Kong was to go find Godzilla, then why would Godzilla care? I mean, he'd probably fight off King Kong to display dominance, as any creature would, but Godzilla is more focused on the greater threat to his territory. However, King Kong will be a much more moderate threat. And I'm sorry that you like to wank King Kong and you think King Kong's way more important to the story than Godzilla and King Ghidorah. I'm sorry your headcanon's Zenshu's like that, but that's just not the case. You have no evidence to support that Godzilla's going to be focused entirely on King Kong if this scenario plays out. And once again, this is all hypothetical. We don't even know whether there's going to be a third monster. We know they're going to fight. And if that case is to happen, where there is a third monster, Godzilla's going to be far more focused on King Ghidorah if that's the third monster. And he also believes that the fight between Godzilla and King Ghidorah would take place on Skull Island, which I don't believe that's going to happen. If anything, my own personal take on it is, why doesn't King Kong just island hop to other islands and make his way to a big major city? Because if anything, I don't think everyone wants to see them fight on an island. Everyone wants to probably see them fight in a major city or something similar to what happened in the 62 film. Nostalgia is beautiful, and nostalgia is what people want, so they're probably going to fight in a city. I don't think it's going to be on Skull Island. I don't think Godzilla's going to somehow be too stupid to wander onto Skull Island to fight King Kong. I mean, that's just pure Kong wink. Now the last question, this isn't really a question, this is pure just strangety right here. It's that someone said that Godzilla, Mothra, Rodan, and King Ghidorah are going to happen on Skull Island. That whole fight's going to happen on Skull Island. I'm just wondering, are you? I am convinced now that he's just strawmanning some of the things that he's finding here, because there's no. Who would think that? Because this is probably one of the only things I'd probably slightly agree with him on, because King Kong's going to be there. Way too many monsters in the film. Not going to happen. We already know there's filming in New Mexico. Rodan's probably gonna pop out of that volcano, which erupted actually, and most likely that's gonna happen. Godzilla, Rodan are gonna fight there. Mothra's gonna fight somewhere else, and Ghidorah's gonna fight somewhere else. And maybe Mothra and Rodan come to help. Maybe they don't. We don't know. But we know it's not gonna happen on Skull Island. However, another thing he does state as his headcanon Zenshu is that that there's still skull crawlers alive, and he says that's a legitimate fact. We don't know that. We know Ramarak's dead. Ramarak was a fully mature male skullcrawler. We do not know what the status of the population was before the events of Skull Island, so for all we know, those could have been the last surviving species, members of the species on the island, and Kong just killed them all. So yeah, he finally ended the ancient feud between his species and that one. We really don't know anything about the logistics of their population as such. No evidence, no empirical evidence can be made for or against. But that is all. That's all of the questions that I did to either debunk or just completely outright and utterly destroy. I think I'll just put this out here. If he wants to debate me, because he always says, oh, the hardcore Godzilla fans don't know what they're talking about. Oh, all these claims, all this arrogance. Well, yeah, I mean, I actually take the series a lot more seriously, and I actually analyze everything. So yeah, why don't you debate someone who actually takes it seriously like you do, quote unquote. But that's all, guys. I hope you enjoyed watching this and me roasting and debunking. As always, like the video, subscribe if you haven't, check my DeviantArt, my Twitter, my Instagram, all that good stuff. I am Zimzilla, and I will see you guys next time.